That's a lack of a total commitment. You are not giving yourself totally to the other person. These kinds of attitudes interfere with that total, full commitment and could be a means of attaining an annulment.
That's why we've been married 41 years. I don't hang out at bars.
And I don't hang out with the girls.
But the Catholic Church also considers the faith journey of the unbaptized person. If they have never been baptized, that's another form that we can use, that we can go along with. One of the things that the church does too, as far as the annulment's concerned, is it's a means of reconciliation for people. Most people that have gone through divorce are usually fairly bitter. There's something there that's, they did this to me, or it failed, or whatever. And I will say, in the times with the annulments, we've heard a lot of people, say it's very difficult to go through the annulment because they have to relive things that they didn't like then and they don't like now. But there's been a lot of them that told us it's been kind of a healing process for them. And they realize it wasn't just that person, there were some other things too that was going on. And so that's one of the things that is really kind of neat about an annulment. When you finally realize it, because there is a lot of healing that goes on.
So you may say, well, what do Frank and I do? When a couple comes to us, or an individual comes to us, the first thing we tell them is, this is your annulment. It's not ours. We tell them that anything that they say to us will be held in confidence. We won't go up to them if we see them out on the street and say, hey, how's your annulment going? Have you done your homework? We don't do that because this is their process. And we do encourage them to get started on it right away. And that's actually what we do. We encourage them. We guide them and we encourage them. We sit down together and we listen to their story. And we listen. And as we're listening for those missing pieces that we just talked about. And then, depending upon how we have to tackle the annulment, there are actually 4 different pathways to take into an annulment. Some of them are very simple. It's a matter of filling out a couple of forms and getting some documentation. For instance, if a Catholic is married outside the Catholic Church, they basically have to prove that they were married outside the Catholic Church and that they were a baptized person at the time. And we can submit those, and it's pretty much handled that way. And the other 2, there are 2 other ones that are pretty simple. It's just a matter of documentation. There is one where everything else kind of falls into. And it is a rather long process. It's called a formal case. And this involves answering questions for the individual and the ex-spouse. Okay? If the ex-spouse decides, I don't want any part of this, I don't want to do it, that's okay. That does not interfere with the individual's process of getting the annulment. It helps it, but it doesn't necessarily hinder it. So we listen, we guide them, we give them questions, we tell them what they need. When they finish their homework, they bring it back to us, and sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes it takes people months to get through it, because like Frank said, the heartache is there, and the questions are very difficult sometimes to answer and to face. They have to provide witnesses, because a marriage takes place as a private union as well as a public union. So there are witnesses there that will basically back up I hate to use the word story, but the history of the marriage. They will back that up. And then all these papers are turned into us. We go over them, making sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. And if we think that there's a strong case here, then we submit it to the tribunal in the Diocese of Kansas City, St. Joseph. If we think that the case should be stronger, or they told us things, prior to that they didn't include, we might say, go back and add this, or put this back in, or what can we do here to make this stronger? So that's our role, is to make sure that the strongest case possible is presented to the tribunal.
So that all the facts are shown.
Then the tribunal is kind of like a court, okay? There's someone that's assigned your case, and they go through it and they gather up everything. They make sure that the witnesses respond. They make sure that you've got all your paperwork in, and they do their part to compile a strong case for you. And then they present it to the judge, and judge, a priest, and he looks over it and decides, can annulment be granted in this case? And if so, why? What is the aspect that there, was not present at the time of the union? Then after the Kansas City Diocese says an annulment can be granted in this case, then the case actually goes to St. Louis. And there they look over it again just to make sure that, cases aren't just being slipped in under the carpet and being done. So they, what we call ratify it. And then finally, word gets back that yes, you have an annulment. Papers are kept on file in the diocese so that when you want to get remarried or have your marriage blessed in the church, the priest who will be officiating contacts the diocese, and he has the necessary paperwork.
We get asked a lot of times, how long does this take? If it's a lack of form, like Phyllis was saying, just a little bit of paperwork and documentation, and that's just a matter of a couple of weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. A formal case,
A year.
a year minimum.
Minimum.
And we have a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but we've been approached a couple of times saying, well, we want to get married in December, and it's in May of this year, and they're saying we want to get married in December. Don't count on it, that's kind of hard, because it does. I mean, it takes a lot of time for when Phyllis said that when they go to Kansas City to the tribunal and it's sent to the judge and the court, it's church, it's not legal or civil. You're not going to get subpoenaed, you're not going to have to appear in front of them. The advocate for you, the tribunal may give a call to the person to say, hey, how about this, I need a little more information or something like that. Or they'll contact us and say, you need to get a hold of them. So it just kind of depends. It's on a case-by-case basis.
And another thing that determines the length of how long it takes is whether or not your witnesses get their paperwork back in. Your witnesses will have questions that they have to answer and submit back. And lots of times, this is the part that takes the longest because the witnesses won't respond. They'll say, yeah, I'll help you out. But then they procrastinate and they don't get their paperwork in. So the diocese will send them out another notice and say, did you get it? We need these answers. And then they procrastinate again. So you can get a couple of months just tied up waiting for paperwork to be done. And you got to stop and think too that it's not just our parish that is sending annulments to the diocese. This is the whole diocese of Kansas City, okay? And I understand, Kansas City, St. Joseph, and I understand Omaha sends theirs to Kansas City too. We were told that. So that's a lot that could be coming in. And this time of year, when we have the RCIA programs going on throughout the diocese, many times annulments have to be applied for during this time, so they really get bogged down this time of year. So a year is certainly understandable when you can comprehend the whole process.
Phyllis was saying the Kansas City Diocese, the Kansas City St. Joe Diocese sends theirs to St. Louis. St. Louis sends theirs to another diocese to be reviewed too. So it's not that there's just one place that's looking over it and saying this is okay, we agree with this. It's another diocese that's looking at the paperwork too. So that all takes time.
And Frank and I, when Father Ron came, he asked us to do this. And when we went through the training down in Kansas City, you could just almost feel the sense of reconciliation and peace that comes about through the process. And we've had people come to us who have literally cried. One woman in particular, she was in tears because she says, I didn't know if I could ever do this because it was such a bad situation. And she just cried. And I said, the church always welcomes you back. Don't ever hesitate to come and find out what we can do. And so this process of annulment is like that. And as I, look out here, I know several people here that we have worked with. And I hope that through going through the process of reconciliation, that this has helped to deepen their faith. And it's just, to me, it's a real gift to be able to minister to people in this way.
Anybody have any questions?
You didn't say anything about prenups.
Prenups. Okay, yes. Prenups actually add a condition to a marriage. So if someone would have to say, okay, I'll marry you, but I want you to sign this prenup. In case we get a divorce, then all our finances will be taken care of. You've just put a condition on your union.
There's no commitment.
There's not a firm
Unconditional.
commitment. Yeah,
Unconditional.
because you have said, if we get a divorce, you've already opened up the window for that possibility. Yes.
What is exactly the difference between annulment and divorce?
Well, the divorce is strictly just the civil part. The legality of it, of marriage and child support and all that type of stuff. And an annulment deals with yourself and your relationship with God. In the church, I guess would be a good way to put it. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, as a witness myself, Father Ron helped, it might be useful to have people know that you have to go through your parish pastor and sit down with him and go over some things as a witness. Father Ron was very gracious to do that with us. So, not with him, it was a pleasure. But
I didn't catch on to it.
they're probably not, because I remember most of the time. When you're a witness, you have to meet with your parish pastor, and at least we did, and make sure that everything's done correctly, and you have to sign off on it and send it to the other guy. So it's always useful to go through. And as I said, Father Ron was very gracious to do that. That's what kind of line that she was intended to say. The church, your diocese has to get involved. So they have to follow. The diocese, your parish has to get involved with it. I mean, I can't just send myself as a witness and not have you sign off.
Yes, if his friend is living in California,
Right.
and asked him to be a witness, so he came here to me, and they fill out forms in my presence. I verified and sent them to California.
That is one thing. Each diocese does it a little different too. We've been trained with the Kansas City diocese, and the annulments actually take place where the person is living. Okay, so like someone from Kansas, if they come to us and say we want to get an annulment, then the annulment has to actually go through the Kansas City, Kansas diocese. And their forms are a little bit different than ours, because we've had one case like that, and it's quite, it can be quite a headache dealing with someone else and the way they do things. So if you're seeking an annulment, you go to where you are living, okay?
And the best starting point is to go to the pastor and talk to them first. Any
Kim,
other
did you
questions?
have a question?
I just wondered if there's ever an annulment denied.
A what?
Annulment denied.
Denied?
We have not had one.
No. But
And
I think Kansas, when we went through the training down at the tribunal down in Kansas City, said that I think it was 99% of them are approved.
And that's in the Kansas City diocese.
Kansas City St. Joe Diocese.
Pardon?
Kansas City St. Joe Diocese.
She was born in Independence.
See, that's what we're for. We're to help you to build that case as strong as we possibly can. We know that there's got to be a piece missing, and that's what we're kind of like detectives. We got to find that missing piece and making sure it's there in your paperwork, so that when we present it, they can say, "Oh yeah, here it is. Look, and here's all these things to back up. This is what's happened, and this is why." And that's why you have witnesses to back up. This is my story, and this is. And they're saying, yep, that happened, yeah, he said that, yeah, she's like that, and, so, That's our job, is to make it as strong as we possibly can, and then you're assigned an advocate at the diocese who also tries to make it as strong as possible. So we have some hardworking people.
Any other questions?
Okay?
I just have a comment. I went through the advocate training for the